Okay, welcome everybody to Chromebooks in the Classroom, part of the Teach and Learn with Chrome series. We're here with a panel of experts in the area of use of Chromebooks in education, which I'm real excited to be with today. And basically, this is another edition of the Teach and Learn with the Chrome series. Many of you have seen this website and have a lot of different activity or sessions that you may have joined, and we're focused here on the 20th today of diving into a Chromebooks like Q&A and how that has really affected the teaching and learning experience for students as well as teachers. So today, my name is Chris McCaffrey. Welcome. I'm the Instructional Tech Specialist, Wilson School District, PA. Been in education about 24 years, 10 years as a high school math teacher, and now the past 14 as an Instructional Tech Specialist, as well as a Google Certified Trainer for Kiker Learning. That's a little bit about me. Please include in the chat. It'd be great if you could say hi in the chat, and include your location, as well as maybe your role in education. It's really great for people to see where everyone is connecting from today. And we are lucky enough to have some panelists with us today. So I'll just let them introduce themselves, and we can kind of move on from there, and we'll come back to them for a Q&A session too as well. So Hannah, why don't you start it off here?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Rings. I am currently an 8th grade teacher at Jonathan Alder Local Schools. We are a public school district. I handle math and language arts.
Oh, jack of all trades there. I love middle school math for sure. All right, Kristen, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, my name is Kristen Tessoy. I'm the supervisor of academic programs here at Edison Township Public Schools. I oversee the AVID program and also the STEM Academy.
That's fun stuff, the STEM Academy stuff. So cool for kids to get involved in. And Dr. Lachey Sumter, please introduce yourself too as well.
Hi, I am Dr. Lachey Sumter. I am currently a 5th grade teacher in Richland School District 2 at Condor Arts Integrated Magnet Elementary School in Columbia, South Carolina. And I am also our AVID site team coordinator here. So I'm excited to see another AVID person here. And we can, kind of talk about how that helps with Google as well.
That's great. That's great. And Richland, too, was one of those districts that was an early adopter. I remember we were looking back in 2013 at Chromebooks, and they had like 85,000 Chromebooks. I'm like, oh, my gosh, like I'm looking at buying 300 right now to kind of kick the tires on it. So they were an early adopter, too, as well.
My student teaching year is when we started rolling it out with Chromebooks. So I was excited.
And so quick, remember back then, the different options were not quite as many. So thanks for joining us today, and I can't wait to speak with you. But we're just going to first start off with kind of the overview of the agenda. The first part will be about 10 minutes long, and then we'll get back into our panel asking their questions about the Chromebook and what its effect it's had in the classroom, but also the effect it's had on the educators and using the tools too as well. So real quickly, we have tons of different options now with Chromebooks, and then we'll speak to that a little depth and talk to our panel, and finally wrap up with the resources that we have available for you to dive a little bit deeper on what we're talking about today, as well as a Q&A. So please use that chat feature for any questions. We have people monitoring that, and they'll be kind of highlighting some, maybe answering some of your questions, but if they can't answer, they'll throw it over to the panel to kind of answer those questions at the end too as well. Sounds good. We'll get moving on then with the idea behind the Chromebook options that are out there. And there are plenty. If you do, we will have this slideshow available for all to view at a later date, and it'll be linked and sent to you too as well. But there's a Chromebook discovery page that has been set up by Google to help you find the right Chromebook for your institution, whether that's a business or educator. This one obviously is focused on education. So the fantastic piece is there's too many options anymore. And then the fact that Chromebooks just continually get better. They incorporated a new screencast app, for example. They also are looking to improve a coming thing called Cast Moderator coming too as well. So as always, Chromebooks just kind of get better and better. But a lot of people don't understand the powerful nature of Chromebooks. I remember us using them in 2013. I just loved the fact that it would start up in 8 seconds. I could get to work. I remember going in a classroom and be like, okay, turn on your computers, and then we'll get back to in about 10 minutes after your profile installs and everything like that. So it just blew my mind that I could have kids working in 8 seconds back in 2013. So the problem with that, though, is that they weren't as powerful enough to run some more robust tools back then. And now that has happened. It's just a plethora of options that can be used for professionals in any area too as well. So you can see the different available models that are here. And then also obviously some more cost-effective models too as well for students too. So the idea that these are cost-effective, but now they're robust and really available for anyone to use. I have one right here that I just purchased. My wife stole my Pixel book, which made me a little disappointed, but then I got to buy a new Acer Spin 714, 8 gigabytes of RAM or 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's a power tool, Gorilla Glass. I love it. I couldn't be more happier with it too as well. And again, just the options are endless there too. So this tool can really help you discover possibly how are you using the Chromebooks in your classroom, or how teachers using it, and maybe what would be the best fit for that particular instance. So kind of just diving in then from the idea of what you know, a Chromebook is and where it came from. The one thing I do want to note too as well is the idea where these came from. Yeah, here we go. And this was one of the original ones, the CR48, where they were really testing it out. I remember getting my hands on this, and it just kind of blew my mind again how quickly I was moving on the web. And then they came out with the first Pixel, the Chromebook Pixel it was called, and I had jealousy because it was so beautiful and worked so well back then. And then I bought myself a personal Pixel book. I totally love it. That's the one my wife stole. And then I remember trying this out with students in our first Chromebook Series 5, the Samsung Series 5 with students back in 2013. And that's where I was like, wow, this tool is really powerful because kids can create and solidify their understanding by communicating that using all these different tools that are available on the web that we didn't have to install and worry about access to. It's just at your fingertips. And the following year, we moved to the Samsung Series 3 Chromebook, and our kids thought these were the coolest because they were silver, they were skinny, they were thin, but really nice experience for students for sure. And since then, it's just gotten better, right? And now our district actually gives our teachers a Dell Chromebook to use in their classroom. And we have actually over about 600 teachers in our school district, and probably I'd say about 70% of our teachers have opted for the Chromebook, just because once you go there, you don't want to go back. And our teachers really appreciate the ability to work quickly and easily and efficiently and collaboratively too as well. And that's really where we wanted to move our students to the web. How do you work well on the web? Because the web's always going to be available. The tools are going to change, devices are going to change, but how do you collaborate, communicate, critically think? All those things, the 4 C's on a Chromebook makes it just simple and easy for teachers. So with that said, we do have a panel, like I mentioned, and we're going to be discussing a few questions with them centered around their Chromebook use, and kind of like I shared a little bit of history. We're going to talk with Kristen, Lachey, and Hannah on their ideas around their Chromebook. So maybe we can start with Kristen on this first question and then kind of do a quick round robin. What device did you previously use? And what about your Chromebook that most surprised you when you started using it, Kristen? If you can kind of kick it off there, that'd be great.
Kristen, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I muted myself because I don't want you guys to hear the bells from the high school. But what I was saying and nobody could hear was, I don't even think I can remember the initial devices because we didn't have any. The teachers would just use whatever desktop that was in our classroom. Our kids didn't have any devices. It was like a big deal when we first got iPads, but it was only like a cart. So it was our students really didn't have access to anything. We began our rollout with the Chromebooks in 2014 with the help of Kiker Learning. But I mean, what was I most surprised about it is just how everything was just there for us at our fingertips, right? We didn't want to use the devices as like a $1,000 or however cost pencil, but we wanted to use it so the kids could like really dive in if they had that question, to look it up and to collaborate with one another. And just the ease of it just made it so much more powerful for us in the classroom.
Yeah, I think that was our kind of experience right away too. When the kids just, their eyes lit up like, whoa, I'm on and I'm working. Like, wow, the ease of use just really brought them in quickly. So thanks, Kristen. And I'll throw over the same question to Lachey and answering the question of.
So Personally, I was using a MacBook prior to coming into the classroom, and I just didn't love how I had to purchase so many things separately in order to, efficiently and effectively utilize the MacBook. And I came into Richland School District 2, like Chris mentioned, we started rolling things out in 2011, 2012 on the elementary level. We started in 5th grade. And prior to that, our students had just a computer lab. We had desktop computers. In the classroom, the teachers had desktop computers. And so we were using those. When I went home, I was trying to utilize my MacBook, to do lesson plans and things like that. And so once we started rolling out the Chromebooks with our 5th graders, I was excited just to have something in the classroom. We cut down on travel time from going to a computer lab, to having them in the classroom. And then all of our students across the district were able to have Google emails. And so their IDs were attached to their email account, and they were able to use that for everything on the device, which just made it super easy for us as educators. And then they were able to, like Kristen mentioned, collaborate, like just the documents, like Google Docs and slides and everything. They were able to collaborate on one thing at one time, and they were super excited. Everybody was kind of mesmerized. So I think that was the thing that stuck out to me the most, like having everything in one space. The speed of it, and allowing those kids to be able to use those emails for everything with their IDs.
That's so funny because as you were mentioning that email piece, Google Classroom wasn't around back then. So how did you collect work and push out work? It was really interesting, the solutions that teachers came up with, and Doctopus came out, and teachers used spreadsheets, and just really cool of how we've kind of like adapted since then to kind of become more efficient too as well. So cool stuff there. And let's kick it over then to Hannah for the same kind of experience of like what device did you use previously, and what most surprised you about a Chromebook when you first started using it?
In the classroom, we just used Windows Desktop. Personally, I used Surface, a Microsoft Surface for a long time. When I switched over to using a Chromebook as an educator, I was really worried that I was going to lose a lot of my features. I was worried I was going to lose space because a Chromebook is it's cloud-based. So I was not super I was worried where are my files going to go? But the fact that it links directly to my drive has been a lot easier because that's what my students are experiencing too. So we don't have any of that time where everyone has to download a file and then re-upload a file. So it's super easy because it's all linked right into their Google Drive, straight from their laptop, and there's no download and upload time because it's already in the cloud when they're creating it and working on it. We also have Acer Chromebooks now for teachers that have the HDMI port. So that has been super helpful, I feel as we are getting those features that we would have feared we would have lost earlier. So that's been really nice. And the speed. I was so worried that I was going to lose my quickness with presenting because I would present off my Surface, but the Chromebook is almost as fast, if not faster, than my Surface was. So that was a nice surprise.
Thanks, Hannah. Really appreciate that. It kind of reminded me of the old flash drive, right? And you were so worried about that flash drive.
Yes.
You back it up at school, and then you back it up at home. You back it up the flash drive. You're like, oh, which one did I back up yet? And
yes, I used to carry it on my keychain.
Yeah.
The flash drive on my keychain.
And then you're praying when you slam your hip against something or wherever the keys are. You're like, oh, did I break my flash drive?
Yes.
That was one of the most freeing feelings ever. I don't have to worry about this flash drive anymore. So good stuff there. And I think I also kind of remembered another thing that Lachey mentioned about the real time just blew our teachers away. I remember doing the first couple workshops on Google Docs and then sharing it out, and they all typed at the same time, and they were like, what? So that idea of working in the cloud and working collaboratively just all of a sudden became real with the Chromebook too as well. So great stuff there. So some other questions around, and maybe then we'll start with Lachey on these. How's the experience of being on the same OS operating system as the students? How's that experience been for you? And then if you wanted to, you could add in another feature of the Chromebook that you've come to love and might not be able to live with too as well, if you want to wrap those two together. But I think that idea of being on the same OS has some benefits. So Lachey, did you have any questions or ideas around that?
Yeah, so we, like you mentioned, we now have Google Classroom. And so one of the things that I love about Google Classroom is that when I'm creating documents and I'm creating activities for students to do, I can push those out into Google Classroom. But then once they're in Google Classroom and I've shared it with, so I have two separate classes, Google Classroom will then create those folders for those different activities that the students have completed or different lessons. And when I look into my Google Drive, I now have folders that are already created based off of what was created in Google Classroom. And so I think that me being able to work on the same within the same system as my students just creates a cohesiveness. So things aren't lost. Everything's in one space. I can organize everything from my classrooms down to the students that I have, the different classes that I have, the activities, the content areas that I'm teaching. And so I think that's one of the biggest parts that I love about working on the same operating system as my students is just a cohesiveness about it, and nothing seems to be lost. I think Google Suites in general, Docs, Sheets, slides, everything. I think that's one of the aspects that I just love the most. Again, like I believe it was Hannah that mentioned everything's in the cloud. So I don't have to walk around with that little flash drive, or I don't have to worry about, things getting lost. If I'm working offline, I'm able to work offline. I should just share that I'm able to work offline when I'm working in Google Suites. And so I think that within itself as well just helps things to be better. It's much smoother as an educator, keeping up with assignments, keeping up with tasks and things that my students are doing, and then things that I'm doing personally and professionally for myself as well.
Oh, you're muted.
It won't ever happen again. But the idea that you hit upon is that the organization is there. Google Classroom sets that organization up, allows us to work on other tasks rather than those medial tasks, right, as teachers too as well. And just simply, as you all have mentioned, that the idea that I can just work quickly, like I can quickly just open a new tab, window, and I can quickly just type docs.new, and bam, I'm in a document that is saved in my Google Drive, and I'm off and running. I don't necessarily need to slow down my thought process and working through things quickly and easily. So you both hit upon that idea, but I do think the idea of helping us deal with some remedial tasks like organizing work of students and having that all there, and the idea of doc slides and sheets, if you started out way earlier, they all look the same, they all feel the same, they have a lot of the same functionality, so students become more familiar with all of them too as well. So great stuff there, and we'll finally move. And I think we're on Hannah now.
Yes, I would say so. I actually taught online school during the pandemic life. I was 100% online with certain students in our district who could not be in the building. So having an actual Chromebook, so that was the first year I had my Chromebook full time because I needed a work computer from home. And I did a lot of Loom videos or a lot of screencasting and showing the kids that this, like, it's the same button for everybody. Like, so my screen, like, I don't have to be like, oh, well, if you have an Apple, it might look like this, or to right click, you have to click Command instead of Control. Like, it's just nice as a teacher that when you give the direction for one student, it applies to all of your students. And that is a time saver in itself. So that's been a real bonus for everyone being on a Chromebook, as well as not having formatting issues. So like if a kid creates something on a Word doc at home, like Google has now, like, it's not an issue getting a Word doc into Google or anything like that anymore. But like video formats, I remember a few years ago, I had like huge issues trying to get certain video, like MP4s or MP3s into certain places or downloading for students. And if we're all on a Chromebook, we all have the same formats and we don't have that issue anymore.
That's awesome. And you kind of mentioned there the same button looking and the right click. I remember that was a big thing because we were a PC district, and all of a sudden you're right clicking with 2 fingers and, what do you mean I got to right click with 2 fingers, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of everyone seeing the same environment. I know, as you mentioned, the idea of creating real quickly, and I need to show students this, they can actually see it. I think that was one of our biggest mistakes going into one-to-one, is we didn't get our teachers' hands on a Chromebook because they didn't really know the little ins and outs of just simply being able to turn on select to speak for maybe an EL student, or dictation for a student who has trouble with writing some complete sentences but is a good communicator, for instance. So I do think that was an area that I think we could have improved upon, and I think you mentioned that idea of making it just easier for everyone and being able to see the same environment real quickly and easily too as well. But the nice thing is too, like there is the Chrome OS Flex, so you can take an old laptop and install Chrome OS Flex on top of it, and now you refreshed it and became a new Chromebook. So there's even options out there for districts. You might have BYOB or bring your own device, but not allowing, possibly to update those because maybe they're older. So that's another option too as well. So we'll throw this back over then to Kristen. I think we need to hear from next on your experience with, same old Chrome OS.
I think a positive experience is that the teachers were able to experience what the kids were experiencing. So if we were planning a lesson, we knew exactly the steps that the kids would have to take, if it would be difficult for them, what obstacles that they may hit. So that would allow us to be better at, rolling something out, deciding if certain platforms would work for certain students and if they didn't. So we were kind of collaborating with our students, how to use this device properly. And also just the feedback that it allows us to give to our students. So, whether it's by leaving comments, whether if we can leave a voice comment for them, because sometimes when you type a comment, the students doesn't, they might react to how we're typing it because they can't hear our voice to it. And we have that option of doing that too in comments. It just kind of opens up that whole communication piece. Some students are embarrassed or they're shy and they don't want to come up and talk about maybe a writing piece or something that they're stumbling on. So maybe they can instant message us. Going back to the pandemic when, we were all at home, it was a great tool to touch base with kids to make sure that they were safe and everything was okay going home while they were at home. And it just, it kind of built us together more as a community. Just to, to be on the same platform, helping one another out and opening up that communication piece. Something that I can't live without is the fact that it is all cloud-based. So if I don't feel like opening up my laptop, I can just go right on my phone and go right onto my drive real fast, or I can get my instant messages on my phone too. So just the ease of it, just makes life so much easier.
Thanks, Kristen. That's great. And the idea of having that equal experience again. But I think what I like what you mentioned is that robust communication of one of our English teachers lives by screencasting feedback to students on their essays. I'm talking about AP students in a writing class in 12th grade, so it's heavy writing, but she can go through papers and give a lot more depth to their feedback because they're seeing her face, they're hearing her voice, they're hearing the intones and inflections. So there's just more communication that is being transferred through that media. And she just loves it because it's fast for her and easy. And it's now on the students also. I forget who said about having comments in there, text comments. Kids might not read them, or maybe they just say, yep, I did that, but not really do it. By leaving a video feedback, it's really easy for students, or not easy for students, just to ignore it because they have to take what you said and do the work themselves. Being smarter and they're working harder is the idea there. So,
Chris, can I also add that with our district being a Google district and students from elementary all the way to high school having access, having their own device, being on the same system from elementary, middle to high school also has its advantages as well. So those students, like previously mentioned, using the tools and just the apps and everything on the device, once they move to middle school or high school, that's the same. And so those teachers don't have to spend time going through a different system or trying to take Word documents and converting everything. It's automatically something that the students have already learned. So it just creates that ease when they matriculate through the grade levels as well. So the technology piece is not the headache for those teachers as those students move up.
And I'd like to add to that too, because we had tablets in KN1 and they were great, don't get me wrong, but hard to manage for sure. And as students moved into second grade, then they were kind of like, whoa, a whole new system. So definitely was some learning gaps there. But now we moved to 2-in-1 Chromebooks at the KN1. Actually, our whole district now is touchscreen Chromebooks. But at first we started with KN1 and they could still get the Android apps on the Chromebook, as well as get the touchscreen experience that their little fingers love. So I do like that idea when you move to that K-12 same OS. Now those kids enter second grade with a lot of skills built into that Chromebook already, but still get that experience that they maybe need for more touchability and interactivity. And again, not that high school want to enjoy that as well too. I think, Hannah, we might have missed the one question about one feature that you could not live without on a Chromebook. So if you had that, or maybe I missed it. So I apologize.
No, you're fine. I think I missed it. I think like aesthetically, I just like the way Chromebooks look. I just think they're prettier. They're easier on my eyes. Like I'll open a Firefox or a Web Explorer and I'm like, this is ugly. Like I know that's kind of terrible to say, but just aesthetically, I like the rounded edges. As a web designer, like I like the way the colors are, the themes are. I like that you can change it really easily. Like the settings are super easy. You can group tabs. Like your bookmarks don't have to have words. They can just be icons. I just love that part of Google.
Yeah, I do too. And I think obviously different companies have different feel to their products, and Chromebook is definitely have been simplified and streamlined. And I really like the look of and feel of them too. So I can't.
Chris, can I also share that I agree wholeheartedly with Kristen that the cloud is just amazing. Like as a teacher, and I'm maybe forgetting to post the substitute work or whatever to my Google Classroom, I literally can be in the airport on the way to a conference and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to post this, and I can just pull it up right where I need to on my phone and post it. But everything being in the cloud, I can access my drive, I can access all things Chrome, and it's there at my fingertips. So I wanted to also share that because it's a couple things I can't live without. So I wanted to share that one too.
Well, I found out that I was running this session about 2 hours ago, and I was like on my phone and looking at the slides and looking at the notes and seeing who you guys were. And without the cloud, I would have had to wait till I got back to my office, open up my device, and I would have wasted a good hour without getting my head wrapped around this. So as the cloud came to the rescue today, for sure, that's for sure. All right, do you guys have anything else to add around your experiences with the Chromebook, or anything in the classroom that you might want to add, and how the Chromebook has maybe impacted that instruction? Okay, so what we're going to do then is move over into the chats, and I've been kind of keeping an eye on. I may have missed something in the chat, but I don't really see many questions or anything in the chat in the live stream. So unless I'm missing something, please let me know. But again, this is more of a like, hey, this is what Chromebooks are. Here are some options. So there's not a lot of obviously questions you may have other than which is the best Chromebook for our staff and myself and our students. So feel free to reach out anytime. Feel free to jump into the chat and add anything in there. But again, I'm not really seeing much there unless, again, I'm missing something. Does anyone else see anything there? Okay, so with that, we really thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, there's lots of resources on this slide deck that'll be posted for you too as well. The Chromebook Discovery page, which I highlighted for you earlier. The Chromebook Simulator is a really great site that someone created, then Google kind of is like, oh, this is nice, so they kind of brought it into their mix. But basically, if you don't have availability to a Chromebook, this is a great way that you can actually explore the Chromebook, and it's actually interactive. You have to click and show things too as well. So it's a nice way that it can be helpful for students because they can come into the Chromebook and say like, how do I install Android apps? And then basically it'll have like an interactivity built in here that you kind of step through of showing you how to actually find Android apps on your Chromebook. Now your district would have to allow students to install Android apps or adults through the Chrome admin panel. So if you don't have the ability to install Android apps, it's probably a setting by your district. The Chromebook App Hub is one of those places that you should know about. A lot of people don't, though, surprisingly. And basically, this is where Google has created a hub for companies that create apps that are friendly to a Chromebook, a web-based HTML5 compliant apps. So this is a place where you can find all different types of apps that work with Chromebooks. And then at the top, the area I like the best is the ideas piece. The idea area of the Chromebook App Hub is fantastic because these are real teachers, real trainers showing you how they're using different types of apps and extensions and the Chromebook, how they're using it in the classroom. So really great ideas that you can steal and use, and a lot of times templates. The other piece of this too is they have accommodations too, where you go and explore the idea. So not only does it give you an overview and tips for success, but it also gives you some differentiation strategies around EL students and special accommodations too as well. So that's the Chromebook App Hub. Again, these slides will be shared on the Teach with Chrome website and will be shared with you. But also the Chromebook help page obviously is a place that you can just come and learn a lot more about the Chromebook. You could even see there is the link to that simulator that I mentioned earlier in the Chromebook help pages. The other piece here, this is from my man Eric Kurtz. Shout out to Eric. He's great guy, unbelievable Google trainer. He has a link here in this deck. Chromebooks can do that. It's a resource document that basically covers everything you need to know about a Chromebook. So if you're not sure, how do I do a screen recording on a Chromebook? How do I have multiple desks or offline access? All that stuff is located in this one-stop shop that Eric's created to help you understand how to use a Chromebook more effectively in the classroom. And the last piece here is if you're not aware of applied digital skills, this is underneath the Grow with Google initiative. And basically there's about 200 project-based lessons that are all based around videos that are created by Googlers. And your students have all the templates where they need. But again, there's tons of project-based lessons that are categorized by collections, and you can just dive in. It's free. Anyone can dive in and then assign these projects to students if you'd like to, or integrate them with Google Classroom. All right, so there are the resources for today. I would like to thank anyone out there. I don't know if we have any questions here. Okay, so this is a really good question. Here comes one from Veronica. You mentioned the 4 C's of a 21st century classroom. Can you each speak briefly about how you use Chromebooks to design these type of learning spaces in the classroom? Does anyone want to kind of volunteer on that question?
I'm okay with hopping in on that, if that's all
Okay.
right.
Awesome.
So communication, collaboration, critical thinking, all those things. As an ELA teacher, I tend to use, when we do like Google Docs, I let kids peer edit and those sorts of things, and teaching them how to use the comment feature is huge. So like we intrinsically think that kids know how to do all this technology, but they don't often know how to use it in the way that we would like them to, or in a productive or professional manner. So like when we do our Google Docs, like I teach kids how to use the comment feature, and that they can like color code things. And how when you share something, like you don't have to give somebody editing rights when you share. Like when you share your own personal intellectual property, you want to collaborate on it, but critical thinking, like we can use those editing skills instead. And so Google allows us to have all those features. And so that's where I use that, where like you need to be a safe digital citizen while you are collaborating and using online tools. And that's where I tend to incorporate it more, is in like peer review processing and those sorts of activities.
That's excellent. I know I was a poor writer. I was a math teacher, so I wasn't the best writer. And as I taught some grad courses and actually had to read other people's writing, give them feedback, I became a better writer. So I think that is such a huge benefit to all of our students who are learning how to write and seeing different perspectives and how students set things up. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We also, when it comes to utilizing it for communication and collaboration, one of the things that we utilize a lot is WeVideo. And so our students will typically have math assignments or like a daily math activity that they have to do. And so at the end of the week, Thursdays or Fridays, they're utilizing WeVideo to create videos for the classroom teacher, so that they're reflecting on what they've learned throughout the week, and they're going back over different strategies, talking about what they need to learn, or what they need to know more about, what they need more support with, and then the areas that they understood the most. And so we utilize WeVideo. We also utilize Flipgrid for those students to be able to communicate those reflective pieces, and just having conversations with other students. So we've used Flipgrid to have students reflect with each other on different activities as well. And we've also used Flipgrid to share videos with our stakeholders in the community. And so that within itself is showing them how to also communicate digitally, because we think, like Hannah kind of mentioned, we think that they just know how to do these things. But the first time we had our students utilize those tools, they were talking very soft and they were kind of shy, and so being able to teach them how to be in front of a screen and communicate digitally was something that we had to learn with that. And then we also used Jamboard when we were during that COVID time where our students were in Google Meet. Jamboard was another big piece where the students were able to work collaboratively. And so we talked about, okay, well, this is your sheet or this is your slide. And, we're moving to different slides, and different slides had different points that they needed to add to those. So it's kind of similar to Google Docs, where they're able to connect and work on those collaboratively at the same time. But it was great because they were able to use Jamboards in breakout rooms. So if we're not in the classroom setting, I was able to place them in breakout rooms, assign them a Jamboard right through Google Meets, and then they were able to collaborate on that. So the collaboration, communication, all the tools and apps, there are so many of them that you can utilize in your classroom. And I too also utilize Google Docs to annotate and have the students do peer editing when they're typing their writing for our treasures books that the students make. So there's tons and tons. I can keep going on and on, but it's through Google to touch on the communication, the collaboration, and then the critical thinking as well.
If I can just,
yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
Just real fast, just to touch base on the creativity piece. So this really opens the door for outside thinking of how you want your students to show their learning. When you think about it, like when we look at social media and how things are presented to us, it's very, bright, colorful, bullet points. So students are creating more infographics to show what they're understanding. They can still take like pen and paper to something, but then they can upload it and add links to it so you can see where the deeper learning is. It just allows them to think differently, and allows the teacher to see how much information that they're consuming and if they can analyze it and then show their learning in various ways. It just really opens up that door for them. So if one child is not very good at writing or very good at drawing or something like that, they can still show their learning in other avenues.
That's absolutely great. I'm taking notes because I'm stealing a lot of your ideas, by the way. But a lot of us obviously mentioned 4 C's, and I think that's the key to engagement, right? Kids want to talk to their friends and their grade level friends and all the kids in school. That's what they want to do. They want to socialize. So how can we embed that content and then leverage that desire to work and collaborate with each other? But again, kids don't know how to do that. So we have to structure that. Okay, what does active listening look like, kids? Okay, now let's practice that. Like being intentional about improving those skills, I think is huge too, as you guys mentioned. Someone also mentioned about communicating out to like parents in the community, that idea of learning out loud, LOLing we call it, and having students produce for a different audience really pushes that thinking to a higher level. And you guys talked about creating too as well, and how that pushes it higher level too is just fabulous with WeVideo recording. I saw a kid in 3rd grade just using the Chromebook as a video recorder, using the screen capture tool. And then she would listen to herself read to see how she scored on a scale of grading herself on her fluency. And the teacher taught them how to grade fluency. So talk about becoming a teacher and learning it a little bit deeper, I think is really powerful too as well. So, and again, all that makes it seamless when you're using a Chromebook too as well.
Google Drawing, one last piece, because Kristen made me think about this. Google Drawing is awesome. Within Avid, we do something called one-pagers. And so a lot of our kids, like she said, they feel like they can't draw or they can't write, or we can't understand their handwriting on the elementary level. So giving them the opportunity to use Google Drawing and showing them how to add color to your background, adding a text box into a document, they're able to share their learning in a creative way, pulling pictures off of appropriate pictures. That's a whole nother conversation. The internet, but pulling those into a digital Google Drawing and then typing their reflective pieces for their one-pager instead of feeling the pressure of having to draw and write on a regular piece of 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Like, it just changes the whole dynamic of it, and they go crazy, with Google Drawing, being able to do that.
And we're going to wrap up here. And Hannah, if you have to go, she has class coming up soon. So feel free to jump out, Hannah, for sure. And thank you for your time. It was wonderful. We'll wrap up. And just one last tip that I absolutely love. This works in all Google's tools, whether it's a doc, drawings, or slides. It's the fact that kids can access their webcam is probably the most flexible besides screencasting. And a lot of times we have students do this real quickly and easily with whiteboards. And you can see that it brings it right into this document. I can make it bigger. I can double click on it and crop it. One teacher did a really cool way to have students do homework. She gave them a regular worksheet. Kids did it on a whiteboard. They picked one problem doing correctly, and they all put their pictures back into the worksheet. And other kids had to come in and record just on 2 or 3 of them where the error took place. So talking about bringing that thinking to a higher level where I have to understand someone else's work and I have to discover where the error is. And then I have to use screen recording to record over top of this to show where the mistake was and how you would actually fix that. adds that layer of communication. If you have kids partner up and do that work, now you're using it as a collaborative tool. A lot of times one device between two kids is really a sweet spot because they're forced to work and collaborate together too as well. So I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. I really want to thank the panelists who came by today. And again, these slides will be shared with you too as well. Please check back on the Teach with Chrome series for more sessions that are coming your way in the next couple of weeks here coming up. So with that, again, thank you to Kristen and Hannah who left, and Lachey for joining us today. If anyone else like that, anything, feel free to go before we jump out of here. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon or morning or night, depending upon where you are.